So if you think about why the Fed was created way back when, the objective back then was to create a safer, more stable monetary and financial system. Aspirational, I know, still very relevant today. And if you think about it, if the Fed hadn't been around in 2008 to help manage through that very difficult time, the world might be a very different place today. So the Fed regulates the cost of credit in the U.S. The U.S. is the world's biggest economy. The U.S. is Canada's biggest trading partner. The U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. So the cost of credit in the U.S., interest rates, affects everywhere else in the world, including Canada. And since we're right next door, it very much impacts us every day. It doesn't mean interest rates are going to be exactly the same, but if rates are going up in the US, there's a pretty good chance they're going up in Canada and vice versa. Best book I've ever read. That implies that I've read a book. The best book I've ever read, which I think everyone should read, is a book called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which is by Dee Brown. Very sobering. It's not a light read, but I think it's very important everyone read it. Average person who's not involved in the financial markets, I think they view the Fed as a black box. There's a group of people that go behind a closed door, they make a decision, it gets announced, and away we go. I think the reality is the Fed is probably one of the most open and transparent organizations on the planet. So you go on their website, they tell you how they're organized, who's involved, why they've made decisions, and they'll even tell you when they're going to make their next decision. I grew up in Edmonton, and we used to listen during the playoffs. My mom would have the Edmonton Eskimo games on the radio in the kitchen because they would black out TV. So I used to sit there with my mom and listen to Edmonton Eskimo games during the playoffs. Fantastic. Will the Fed be relevant? 100%. So to the extent, that assumes, of course, 50 or 100 years from now, consumers are still buying products, businesses are still investing, and all or some of those purchases and investments are financed. So the cost of credit or interest rates are important. Absolutely. It'll be as relevant in the future as it is today. This sounds really boring. I've always been a big cracker fan, like a nice salted cracker.
No cheese?
No cheese.
Just lots of salt.
Just lots of salt, like whole sleeve. Eat the whole sleeve. Yep. I don't know if millennials get it wrong, but I think the advertising would suggest to millennials that investing is very easy. You know, you do it yourself. You buy a stock, it goes up, you sell it, then you go buy another one, it goes up. The world doesn't work that way. Maybe the best way to think about it is if you think about all the teenagers in the world, I don't know, maybe there's 900 million of them. If you took them all away from their parents tomorrow and said, why don't you guys self-regulate? And why don't you guys make all your own investment decisions in a vacuum? There's probably 5 or 6 of them who would do a pretty good job. Everyone else would have a pretty hard time. So we need the Fed. We need some guidance. We need some supervision.
Sounds dangerous.
Doesn't mean they always make the right decisions, as parents don't always make the right decisions, but it's good to have them around. The lie detector question. You know what? I'd like to hook up Carswell. Sorry, I should say proper name. John Carswell. To a lie detector, because I don't believe he was ever Chug-a-Lug champion at RMC. I'd like to get the truth on that story, actually.
That was awesome. You kill it every time, and I'm not just being that.
Well, you are being nice, but thank you very much.